Hello. This video is about the Delta Mendota Subbasin within Madera County area. So it's Madera County is going to manage this particular GSA, which is in Delta Mendota. So let me share my screen. Uh, so this is what the Delta Mendota Subbasin looks like. It's a pretty long basin. And within this basin, there is a number of GSAs, as you can see by that graph up there on the top. And each one of those GSAs has I don't know if they each have a GSP plan or they might aggregate different plans. In our particular case, we're just going to be talking about the Madera County portion of it, which is right here, County of Madera. And it's going to, oh, it's going to have certain parameters. Every GSA is managed differently, and the way that it's going to get to sustainability in 2040 is managed differently. So that's what we're talking about today. Madera County is in the middle of the state of California. This particular basin is towards the center, flowing towards the ocean. So as I stated, the goal is to get to sustainable groundwater by 2040. The economic goal is extreme water conservation in agriculture without retiring agricultural production, because this area is mainly agricultural production. Wide area versus surface areas. So a lot of that area that I had showed you earlier, it is serviced by irrigation canals or irrigation infrastructure. Some of the areas are wide areas that only rely on groundwater. And that's what a wide area typically means, is that it has no other source of water except groundwater. A surface water area can have both surface water and groundwater. So it's still affected by the SGMA rules and regulations, because on a typical year, you can either have 100% as in 2023, or you can have 0% as in 2022 and 2021. So there's big swings on the amount of water that's available when you have an irrigation district with irrigation canals. That's why a lot of farmers rely on groundwater as a buffer, so when there is no water available. But this rule, this new policy called Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA for short, SGMA, is aimed to reduce the amount of withdrawals so that the area becomes long-term sustainable, that farming can continue for multi-generations. This particular GSA, Madera County Delta Mendota Subbasin GSP plan, so there's a GSA and a GSP. A GSP is a groundwater sustainability plan, has some key terms. You have the total number of acres in the GSA. You have the active acres that are actually being irrigated. You have what's called your sustainable yield. That's the amount of water that is actually recharged into the groundwater each year that can be withdrawn for farming and be sustainable without water table dropping. You have your transitional water, which is actually the over allocation, and that has to be reduced to 0 over time. So that's the amount of overdraft that's happening. If we continue to use that water, the groundwater table will continue to drop. So that's the transitional water that needs to get to 0. There's a reallocation of sustainable yield. For the farms that aren't using it, are fallow and have decided not to farm that land, their sustainable yield is aggregated and then distributed among all the active farmers. So that way there's a little bit of a bump as far as the water availability. In this particular GSA, GSP plan, there's 3,000 acres that are farmed, 2,100 are active. So your sustainable yield is 1,500 acre feet divided by 3,000. You get 6 acre inches of total available water per farm area that you have. Now, because some of it is not used, that there's between the 900 acres that's not being used, that are not farmed, you take those 900 acres and they each have 6 acre inches, you end up with 5,400 acre inches that are not used. And you divide that by the 2,100 acres that are used. Each acre that is farmed gets a bump of 2.6 acre inches. So now you have your 6 acre inches of sustainable yield, and you have your 2.6 acre inches of reallocated sustainable yield, giving you a total of 8.6 right now. The next number we need to look at is what's called the transitional water. This is the over allocated amount. And right now, 2,000 acre feet are being overdraft today. So that amount needs to get to zero. And the way that this plan is designed is that it's going to reduce 2% of that number each year till 2025. And then in 2026, it goes to 6% every year to 2039. And by 2040, it'll be at zero. Now let's look at all this together, all these numbers together. And right here, you can see your reduction of the transitional water per year. From 2023, it goes 10.74 right now, down to zero. So this is very important. This is why I developed this presentation, is because I was having a hard time figuring out, okay, what is my long-term prospect for my land and what's going to happen to it? And that's what this is showing right here. Now when we add it all together, this is what it all looks like. So that way you can actually figure out what is your allocation between your 6 acre inches, your 2.6, and then your transitional water, which is at 10.74. So this year in 2023, I had 19.3 acre inches to work with. But I wanted to know what is that going to be like in 2030? And that's at 15.46. And then I thought, okay, what am I looking at 2040? So that way, is that a good purchase of land or a good investment of redoing my agriculture? And so that's what these numbers were allowing me to do, is figure out exactly how much water was going to be available. Now, if you go over the amount, there's a penalty. In 2023, it's $100 for every acre foot that you go over. So if you play with inches, just divide that 100 by 12, and that'll tell you how much costs you per acre inch that you go over. If you go by feet, then you have the number right there. But you can see that number goes up till 2027, till where it hits $500 and continues at $500 from that point on. Now, the best way to look at this, or see the impacts, is if you have a 100 acre plot of land and I only have 19.3 acre inches, how many acres of almonds can I actually continue production? Or in pistachios, how many acres? And this is based off of almonds taken in 50 acre inches, pistachios taken 36. These are the numbers that are typically needed as far as acre inches in order to get a full crop at full potential. So you can see right away that it drops dramatically for the almonds, and the pistachios have a nicer maintenance as far as keeping them up. Pistachios also last longer too. You don't have to replace them every 25 years. So it's a long-term crop. So that's why you see a lot of people move into pistachios. With the aquifer pipe product that we manufacture, you can actually keep full production. So instead of dropping down to 59 acres or the other number on the pistachios and the almonds, you can actually keep full production because the way that our infrastructure works, it reduces the water demand down to 10 acre inches. And so you keep full production and still have allocated amounts left over per year that you can use on other farms within your APNs within that geographic area. So you can move water around to different spots. The one thing you cannot do is you cannot sell it, cannot sell the excess to another farmer. So that's a challenge. You can only move it from one parcel to the next parcel, but you can keep full production in, except for those last 3 years. And we have a strategy for that for 2038 and beyond. So you look at valuations, with only that much water, you can only produce so much revenue because you can only grow so many crops. So the price of your land drops dramatically. And if your almond, a typical almond orchard was going for about 30,000, it's close to 45,000 some places. And same thing with pistachios. It was pretty high up there. I was seeing pistachio orchards going in for 55,000, but conservative, let's say it's 30,000, 38,000. And your production is at 2,500 pounds and your price per nut is $2, then this would be the valuation of your land as the reduction of water goes down, because it's all based just like apartment buildings. If you have 100 building 100 apartments in a building complex, and I can only rent out 50 of them, the value of that apartment complex isn't worth the whole 100. It's worth the 50 because that's what I can rent out, the water availability. If I can find water for the other 50 that are vacant because of no water, but I find water for the showering, then the valuation jumps up if you get full valuation. But as the way surface water today, your reduction is going to look like this, and the valuation is going to start to model this as well. With aquifer pipe, we only require 10 acre inches, so you continue that full valuation of your property from now until 2038. But we plan is that you can use the same infrastructure for recharge. So you not only do you maintain your price, but this particular product is a agricultural infrastructure, meaning that it is built to design to conserve water in dry years, but in wet years you can use it to recharge the groundwater, and that way you bank water for those future years that you're going to need to keep full production at 10 acre inches now into future generations. So bottom line, acreage that is in the Delta Mendota Subbasin managed by Madera County is going to drop to 8.6 acre inches of available water sustainable yield. That's if the current 900 acres remain out of production and that sustainable yield remains at 6. If for some reason the other GSAs overuse their water and everybody has to cut across the whole geographic area, then that number will drop. But as it sits today, your sustainable yield is at 6, your reallocation is 2.6, and this is the trending line for your transitional water reduction each year till you get to 0, which gives you a total amount of 8.6 acre inches to farm with. I hope that helps out. It was very confusing for me when I was trying to figure out some property that I was looking at, and this helped me solve that problem. Thank you. Have a good day.